You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's Murder in the First After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's Murder in the First After Show.
I'm looking at you, Marina. You're supposed to be singing this song.
I really don't know it.
You picked it?
Really?
I do. I like this song.
Not a
but
Beyonce
yeah,
fan?
I like her a lot. I just don't know lyrics of songs in general. It has to be like an old song.
Fair enough.
All right, it's a little self-conscious,
Sorry,
but you don't
guys.
want to sing it. That's cool, whatever. Hey, guys, welcome into the Murder in the First podcast right here on AfterBuzzTV.com. Season 1, Episode 6, Punch Drunk, hence the Beyonce Drunken Love. We figured it was applicable this week, I guess. Yes. I'm your host, Bobby, joined by JB and Marina. Monsi is out this week. She will be back next week. We missed her on the last ship, too, but it's okay. All right, guys, let's jump in, because
Let's do this.
we got a lot to talk about tonight. A very fun episode. It was an hour-long episode, as they all are, but it seemed like it was about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Very fast.
You went by very fast.
Very fast, very interesting, very moving very quickly. And I know that we were all kind of, hey, truth be told, the first couple episodes, we were a little uncertain about this show. Let's put it that way. But I think every episode since about 2, 3, 4, 5, and now 6 has gotten better and better and better. And this one maybe, I don't know about y'all, but maybe is the best so far for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really finding its format. In the beginning, it was jumbling a lot with different scenarios, different characters. There's a lot going on. Now it's really kind of trimmed down into basically the trial this episode. So it was a lot more focused, and we got to see Daniel just really whip some out.
Doing his thing, man. Absolutely doing his thing. So we start with that, too, and actually we see him whip some out in traffic in that very first scene. Eric's agitated, doesn't want to be late, understandably, but he's got to understand that this is a marathon and not a sprint, and a murder trial is not something you do in a day. And Daniels literally grabs him by the neck like you would like a dog. You know, a dog or a little kid or something. I don't know, how you punish kids, but something like that. And Daniels is really kind of, this old geezer's like overdoing it and stuff, but showing Eric, it's time to shut up. This is my domain. You can do what you do wherever you do it. Mm-hmm. Court is my domain. And did you notice Eric didn't say another word the entire episode?
Well, I feel like Eric has become Daniel's puppy.
Yeah.
You know, he would do whatever he wants because, he walked away once and he will walk away again if he doesn't follow his rules.
Right. I think he really gets his role now, and it's obviously one that's a little bit played back. He was trying to play quarterback in the first few episodes, and that did not work out well for him at all. So I think he's finally realized, his mistakes he's made. He's got to just play this part, and that part is to sit down and shut up and not smile in court. He's gotten some good commentary on what he was doing wrong. He obviously had to pay for it with that 10 mil. So I think he's really buckling down and taking it seriously for once.
He should be taken it seriously because he's literally on trial for his life.
Right.
Yeah.
But Daniels, it's interesting to see the dichotomy because Eric, it's his life. He takes it seriously. For Daniels, I don't mean to make light of it, but it is kind of a game for him because he's an attorney. He's not the one who's going to jail. He doesn't see all that. But this is court for him. He's been doing this for decades. And you can kind of see the game of playing with Saletti, the prosecuting attorney, and Saletti's trying to prove a case against Eric. And Daniels is all about reasonable doubt, which is what it always is in a murder trial, is reasonable doubt. And if you can prove with just a little bit of reasonable doubt that Eric might not have been there, that's all they need. And so every witness, every time somebody testified today was interesting to see how Daniels just tried to cast maybe just the slightest bit of doubt in their testimonies, and he was more successful with some than with the others. He was very successful with the guy who had the computer graphic mock-up of Cindy falling down the stairs. He was not as successful with the forensic analyst, the semen expert, because she pretty much told him off, and he had to kind of back off immediately right there. But I guess to grade him out for the first couple days of the trial, not with what happened with Mark Strauss at the end. We'll leave the suicide for just a second. But with just the trial events, do you guys think William Daniels is getting his client off so far?
I think he is. I mean, he did very well with the doctor. Obviously, that was probably his best defense. But he also did it pretty well against Terry.
Yeah.
I think if he won like 2 out of 3, that's definitely moving in the right direction. In terms of the jury, a lot of his statements, he was able to object to a lot, so a lot is stricken from the record. I think he's doing pretty well, like report card wise for day one.
And he did well with Mark Strauss too, even
Right.
though Strauss's situation is now different. But I think Daniels probably won the Mark Strauss
Right.
situation too.
But there are a few times that we're all like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Like when they had the mock videos, the guy made it clear that she couldn't have broken her neck if she fell by herself. And then Daniels comes in, and his whole thing, it's about her falling by herself, and nobody says anything.
That's I understand.
It really bothered me.
That should have been the end of that interview if
Yeah.
he was like, well, point blank, here's a fact. She couldn't have broken her neck falling down the stairs.
Yeah, not the way that she died.
Yeah, on her own.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a mistake. So at that point, I understand Daniels wants to cast reasonable doubt, but what's the reasonable doubt if it's a dead set fact like the guy explicitly said she can't fall down the stairs on her own and break her neck? That was confusing.
Well, I think that that model was showing, if she had fallen in one specific way, hitting the stairs in any number of directions wouldn't have broken her neck.
I took it to mean that they modeled every way she could have fallen based on how she ended up,
Right.
and there's no way that her own slip could have caused her.
Yeah,
to
I was a
break her
little confused about
Yeah.
that too. The only reason I think it was a little bit more broad was afterwards he said, there's no way that we can map every single possible outcome, because obviously like anything can happen. So it's maybe he made it more specific. We obviously just watched it once, so there could be like a line or something that we missed.
But also with Mark, right? He killed Mark. Mark is not a very good speaker. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's kind of crazy. But he had an alibi. Like, why didn't they say anything? Why didn't he mention the name of the woman? Why didn't they use, the footage that they have, the proof?
Well, see, I thought about that too, and I agree with you. And then the more I thought about it, English and Mulligan went to Sally Smoot afterwards, and Mark may not have known all those details that English and Mulligan know. He may know that, his alibi checked out, like they told him that, so he was off the hook, but he may not have been told her name was Sally Smoot, this is what happened, because he really doesn't remember it. So from Mark's perspective, it looks pretty bad. His alibi won't check out. I look guilty, whatever's going on. From the detective's perspective, it's embarrassing in the moment for the prosecutor to say, this looked really bad. But the next day when Sally Smoot comes in, they can rectify it. The problem is court's in recess now, so they
Yeah.
can't rectify it. And really, now that you say this and I started thinking about it, Daniels may have, in an inadvertent way, kind of driven Mark Strauss to suicide and been one of those factors, because Strauss looked so awful in court and so disheveled and so whatever, and then straight up asked the judge if he needs an attorney. Not anymore, buddy. You're good now. Where you're going, you don't need an
I think you're
attorney.
safe. I think you're safe.
You're safe from that right now. I think you're okay.
Whenever you ask the judge if you need a lawyer, it's
Not
bad news.
I feel like if you get in a position to ask a judge, don't even ask the question. If you legitimately have a question for a judge, if you need an attorney, the answer is probably yes.
Yeah.
The answer is
That
always
thought
yes.
pops in your head and you're on trial, then probably.
If you're hearing the words alibi from a detective, just lawyer up right now, which he should have done from the beginning. The interesting scene, I guess, with Daniels and testifying and everything about the court was with Terry, because we see Terry practicing with Mulligan, which is what a lot of detectives and people like that do, and they go to depositions and they meet with lawyers and whatever. And it was interesting to see Terry in court deal with the prosecuting attorney and then deal with Daniels. And it got a little more contentious with Daniels, obviously, like we would have expected it to be. But I think Daniels is such a pro. He knows you can't look too bad in the eyes of the jury in terms of being too antagonizing to witnesses. So he's got to be careful, even when he has somebody like Terry, who he knows is going to give him the opposite of what he wants, of what Daniels wants. You still have to kind of play it close to the vest with Terry, and you can't go over the top.
Yeah, Daniel did an amazing job talking to Terry. He just knew how to ask questions a certain way that made people doubt. And if they doubt a little bit whether in what Terry is saying is true or not, or if it's for sure or not, then he's in a good position.
That's the thing. You only need one person to have a little bit of
Right.
doubt out of 12. And if Daniels can count on that one person to have that, you have enough, So I guess to ask the question now that we've seen day one, the first couple days, whatever it is of the trial and the investigation, is Eric Blunt guilty? We do this every week. We do a murder watch every week. We're going to talk about Bill in a second because Bill's looking pretty good.
Bill
Yeah,
is
Bill.
looking very
And
good.
when we had Raphael Sparge on the show last week, we told him about your Bill theory, and he wouldn't give us any, spoilers.
Right.
He wasn't going to talk about it, but he was just like, okay, noted. I'll hear it. So I don't know if that means anything, but Bill's might be looking a little bit better. But before we get to Bill and all that sort of stuff, Eric Blunt, guilty or not, based on what you've seen today in the trial?
I say not guilty.
What makes me think that he's not guilty is that also last episode he took a test, right?
The lie detector.
Yes, and he passed. So I don't know how accurate they are, or if you can, play around with it and lie. I don't know, but that kind of made me think, oh, okay, maybe he is not.
They're not accurate.
Yeah.
It's not a science.
Right.
It's not admissible in
It's
court
not?
accurate,
Okay.
yeah. But I mean, they are
Okay.
they're accurate enough to the point where they do use them in situations like this,
Right.
to kind of gauge what's going on. So even though it's not admissible in court evidence stuff, it still is kind of an indicator for what
Right.
the defense
For
wants.
at least for
Yeah.
us to
Yeah.
pick whether he is or not.
Yeah.
And I don't think he is.
I
I mean,
can't-
I think he's involved somehow, but I don't think he's the killer.
I agree with you guys, but then my question is, he was definitely there getting a blowjob 15 minutes before she died. So how do you explain that?
Maybe it was the lawyer that was there watching.
Well, thank you. Yes, the lawyer is my guy. I'm starting to think honestly, and we can talk more about this in predictions, obviously, but I'm starting to think honestly that Cindy Strauss's death was accidental. The monkey wrench in this, though, if she was messed up on alcohol and ecstasy and all this other stuff, who knows? We did have that AfterBuzz pool party this weekend, and we were all a little messed up on just alcohol. But you start walking a little funny, and if you're messed up on a lot of stuff, who knows what could happen if she's in her own place, right? I think we've all been there. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, the
no
situation
comments.
that Daniels kind of drew up from the information given that she was on like a trifecta of drugs was like definitely raised the doubt in my mind. All that stuff, plus she was pregnant, like anything could have happened, even if it was without Eric Blunt. I mean, anyone like him, Bill, Mark Strauss. I feel like any of those people in that situation, knowing that she's pregnant, they obviously all care about her because they've all had relations with her. That could have spun out of control in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
But I keep remembering that Eric always forced drugs into the mouth of women he was sleeping with. Like we saw it in many different episodes. He was like forced them to take drugs. So I don't know. Maybe he did force it into her.
Mm-hmm. And she wasn't taking it of her own volition, but it was that
Right.
cocktail of champagne and Xanax or whatever it was in that thing we saw a couple episodes ago.
Exactly.
And this girl who we see in previews and coming attractions may testify against him in court for doing this to her years earlier. So yeah, that is a great point. A great point on Eric there. I don't know. I'm starting to think it might have been an accidental death. The monkey wrench, though, is Kevin Nyers' death, which was a closed case for us. But then we see a lot of this Chris Walton stuff, the guy who admitted to doing it. And now Chris Walton is saying, I didn't commit the crime, but how would you have believed me? I didn't have an alibi. I'm a lowlife. The system was made to get guys like me.
He was there. His fingerprints.
Yeah,
were
he was there
everywhere.
earlier in the night. So is Walton telling the truth now? He has nothing to gain by telling the truth. Is he telling the truth now to English when he says he didn't kill Kevin Nyers?
I think so. I didn't think he did it to start with. When he confessed in the court, I didn't think he had done it. It seemed to me that somebody made him do it. Somebody made him confess, or something would happen. They would kill him. I don't know. And again, he was a low life.
Right.
He was a drug addict. What did he have to lose?
Yeah, and what does he have to gain
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
saying that now? Like, I mean, he's already in jail for the crime. Like, it doesn't matter.
And it's an off-the-record conversation
Right.
in like a kitchen back room or something. It's not even an interrogation room. So how would anybody ever know that? And maybe, and this is way too far speculation, but if you were Chris Walton, you're a drug addict and a drug dealer and you got all these problems and you're living terribly, jail sounds pretty good. If you want to get clean and you want to have 3 meals a day and you want a roof over your head, I mean, I'm not kidding. I know that sounds ridiculous, but jail might sound better than some of his other options. So if he says, I didn't commit the crime, no one will ever believe me, I don't want to go through a trial, let me just confess and just, live my life in jail, and that's it. And that's depressing as hell. But
yeah,
maybe
it could be the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we don't know too much about his motives or whatever, but judging by the way he looks, which is what he brought up, who knows what's going on with that guy's life. I guess it opens the door, though. Who then would have killed Kevin Nyers? Was it Blunt because of this blackmail deal? Here's the thing about Blunt that I don't understand with both of these deaths. If it is Blunt, which he's on trial for, so let's say, hey, maybe it could be him and he's the primary suspect. Sure. The guy's worth billions of dollars. So pay off Cindy Strauss to have the baby and just don't talk to her anymore or whatever, all that sort of stuff. And then pay Nyers, $50,000, whatever he wants. $50,000 is nothing. And if Nyers keeps coming back, record these conversations and go to the police and say I'm being blackmailed, and that's illegal. I don't understand why kill 2 people over money and whatever other motive if you have enough money to just pay him off and make the problems go away. If assuming Eric killed him, why?
I don't think he killed them, but I think he was involved. I think he had somebody kill for him.
But what would be the motive, though? Was it something like to make his problems go away, or is it something deeper relationship-wise?
Maybe embarrassment, just trying to get rid of that part of his life. The fact that he killed his mom.
That Kevin Nyers killed
his mom. So I think he hated his dad for it.
That's actually interesting. Maybe.
Also, there could be another secret that we aren't aware of yet. I think when Terry was on trial tonight, he said that Kevin Nyers in his email wrote, like, I'll expose this about you. So I think, it seemed like the blackmail wasn't just that one time, and it was sort of an ongoing thing. I think it was like, $50,000 at one time. But to a billionaire, chump change. Yeah. The secret might be worth something else. We had that issue with Jeremy, his old colleague, and he was wanting to expose something. So I feel like there's something that Eric fears more than just money, because as we saw with Daniels, he's ready to just throw 10 mil down.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like another murder that we don't know about, because that would really screw Eric. Money, he doesn't care, but if it's something that is going to put him in jail.
This is so crazy. We just went from Eric's not the killer to maybe Eric's a serial killer in like 5 minutes. I just want to know what happens. And Rafael Esparza didn't tell us anything last week about what happens. You're killing me. Let's move on to JB, your guy. Let's talk Bill.
Okay, let's talk Bill.
Bill looks pretty good for this in a way because of his just open violence on his wife.
He's got a bit of rage. I will say that.
I think so. And okay, first off, I'm not blaming the victim. Understand this, but she keeps throwing the video in his face, and a little part of me is like, and I'm sorry for saying it, what did you think was gonna? Why are you doing? I know she's mad, but like, if you're so mad, and if you say you don't want to see him ever again, walk out of the room. Don't antagonize this idiot. Just walk out of the room, as opposed to throwing the video in his face again and getting physical with him again, and then you get hit, and it's like, you shouldn't have. I understand you're angry, but you said you didn't want to see him again. Walk out of the room, especially with the lawyers present.
It's easier said than done.
I guess.
It's one of those things when you find something about somebody that, you're spending your life with, you don't know what can happen. Like, you don't know the anger and what you can come out and the person you can become just because of it. So, I'm not saying I would do that. I think being ignoring is the worst thing, is the most hurtful thing you can do to somebody who hurt you, because they expect you to be angry, they expect you to attack you, and so I think ignoring is a very powerful thing because it really hurts them. But most people don't act that way, right? We just go crazy, and I think that's what she's doing. She should just walk away. She keeps saying it, but she doesn't walk away. Especially the video. Why would you have not deleted the video from your phone? I know she needs this for proof, I guess.
I assume, but for proof, you're right. But I assume for proof, you would have put that on a server or something at this point with your divorce attorney. Absolutely. Yeah. So at this point, get it off your phone. First off, you got to get off the flip phone. Doesn't she have one of those kind of older flip phones? Like, get an iPhone. You got to get off the flip phone. But take Bill's money, whatever,
Yeah.
take his Appleton stock, but get off the phone and try to move on with that portion of your life. Because here's the thing too. I know Bill hit her, and I assume because the lawyers were present, something has to happen to him. They can't just say, oh, this never happened. He's got to face some kind of something. But let's say that he didn't hit her. Let's say she came up and she hit him, because she was so angry because she kind of instigated this thing. So does she want to go to jail? Does she want to then commit a crime or an assault or something? It's like, move on as much as you can while letting your attorneys work this out. You apparently have a great divorce attorney. Let that happen.
But you know what? Maybe she did it on purpose. Maybe she wanted him to hit her.
So she instigated it for that end so she could have more leverage or something.
Yeah, maybe, she had this talk with her lawyer before and feels like, listen, if you can get him to hit you.
Women are
She
devious.
also didn't think about her, like, the implications of the video and a motive for her to kill Cindy. So, I mean, she's all, like the lawyer said, she's definitely a suspect. That is a complete motive. If you found out that your husband had an affair, obviously you'd have some animosity to the woman he was with.
Yeah, but can't they prove that she didn't find out until afterwards? Like, when did she get that video? Obviously, she didn't have it before because they're still living together.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know when she would have gotten the video, or if they could have proved that she would have known something else beforehand. I guess what it comes down to is, does she have an alibi? And we don't know yet if she has an alibi for the time of the death. So I guess that's the biggest question. I don't know. We'll see. That's a good point about her and that thing, though. But it also makes Bill look pretty bad because of the violence in front of people towards his wife. So if he's going to lash out and be that violent that quickly,
Right.
Especially when
can
he's in
easily-
the wrong, right?
Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
when he's the one who screwed up.
and he could have done the same thing to Cindy if he's the killer. He could have done the same thing to Cindy that he did to his wife in that thing where they kind of get in a scuffle and then he pushes her and hits her or whatever and she falls.
Yeah.
His wife just fell on the ground. If Cindy is at the top of the stairs, she's going to fall down the stairs. So theoretically, he could have in a way just recreated the murder had he been the guilty one.
Right. Or had that scene played out over, like, a staircase.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand it because it said she was giving Eric a blowjob 15 minutes before she died. That would have been such a fast change of events, like for him to leave in that time and for Bill to come and like this happened already.
Listen, if anybody's going to leave less than 15 minutes after a blowjob, it's Eric Blunt. Like,
Yeah,
if anybody's going to do that,
okay,
it's
we're good,
him.
I'm out.
He's just going to bounce.
The helicopter's outside. I gotta go.
No, I'm okay with him leaving. I mean, it seems too fast for him to like leave and then Bill come in and they have a fight. Like it's too close, He would have like 5 minutes for them to like talk, fight, and kill her.
I'm worried that this is going to turn into like almost a caricature of a police detective show where Eric's there 15 minutes before. Eric's lawyer's following Eric around, so he's also there. Bill shows up because he's still in love with Cindy. Mark shows up because he's drunk and he wants to get back with her. And Bill's wife shows up. And there's like 7 possible murderers at the house at the same time.
Who did it? Dun,
Exactly.
dun, dun.
I'm worried it's going to be something like that. It was Colonel Mustard in the living room with whatever. I hope it's not something like that. But you're right. The window is so small in the 15 minutes. That's the most damning piece of evidence for me with Eric, besides the semen, the DNA, is that such a small window. It's like, what really could have happened to have him, to have them do that, perform that, then him leave, then somebody else show up, then a full argument to happen,
Yeah,
and
it's too
then
short
a
of a
death.
time.
It's crazy.
I mean, because even if he did leave like right after, like by the time he walks out and drives out, that's another like 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes. By the time somebody walks in, it's another 2-3 minutes. So it literally is like 5 minutes left.
And the only way I think that happens is if somebody, and this is why Bill looks good and why Mark looks good, if somebody has been watching and
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
sees
Yeah,
Eric was
then,
there.
Then it could have,
Yeah. Or for that matter, Bill's wife. Those 3 may be the best for this time period if somebody was watching to see what happened with Eric or to see him leave, and then they go and confront Cindy.
Right. Like, Eric leaves, and then they obviously are right there to have that conversation.
And they're already heated, so they're in
Right.
the argument, so it just begins and boom, I guess. Well, we'll see. 4 episodes
We
left.
shall
Dun,
see.
dun, dun.
All right, let's talk about relationships in this episode because it wasn't all court case. It was obviously Taye and Mulligan, and they didn't really ever have that conversation again about kissing. They didn't do it last week, and they didn't do it again this week, so it's still hanging over our head, and we need to see how that plays out. But we do see a lot with Taye and anger issues, I guess. Now, the first scene with the guys in the bar, I don't know about y'all. I've never beat up anybody in a bar because I'm not tough. If I were, maybe I would have. But I feel like you have, Marina. But
No, I haven't. But it's one of those things that I've always wanted to.
wanted to beat.
No, just
Two guys
punch
up there.
someone once in my life.
well,
enough.
JB's volunteer.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bobby's right over there.
Next week on the show.
Next-
Well,
Moving on.
now that Monty's out, we'll volunteer for her.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
no.
That's a scary thing to say. Okay, well, if
They would have to really, really, really deserve it.
I've always wanted to punch somebody in my life. And you're tall. Your reach is long. I feel like you could like outpunch a lot of people.
Hold on,
so.
like, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right. Moving on. I've totally lost my train of thought. Speaking of punching at the bar, was English justified in that bar scene to knock those two guys out? Was that right?
I think, didn't they throw the first punch?
They did. They threw the first punch. They got
Right.
in his face. All that
So
stuff.
he was just defending himself. You know, I think if the guys were just giving him a hard time and then he went for it, but they first of all, they broke the glass on him and then they threw a punch. Like, what are you going to do? Like, just let them punch you?
And there's a racist overtone when they say, aren't you going to clean that up, boy? You don't
Right.
say boy to somebody in that situation. You know what you're saying when you do that.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think as a cop, he definitely shouldn't have, because it's it's kind of like a Con Air situation where he's had so
Thank
much
Yes.
training that
Yes.
it really isn't fair. It's kind of like assault with a deadly
We've been
weapon.
talking about Con Air all day.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Excellent.
Yes.
I'm glad. We can reminisce about that. Good movie.
I'm telling you.
Nick Cage.
I'll watch it. Don't worry.
But at the same time, as like a human being, I completely back him. Those guys were being way out of line, and getting in his face. They were harassing other people at the bar. He, as a cop, he definitely should have said, like, I'm a cop. You guys are done. Like, that's it for you.
Yeah.
But as just as a guy and a human being, he reacted in a normal civilian way.
So was Mulligan wrong to overreact on him?
I think coming from her, who, went and killed that guy.
Ooh, yeah, that is a little hypocritical.
Yeah, I don't think she's in a place to do that. But I mean, somebody should have said something to him. So she was the only one there.
Well, it's an interesting story, too, with Mulligan and her ex and Terry, because she kind of says something to him, that time you got in a fight with my ex, and Terry's like, that was 3 years ago. And immediately, I know we were all like, what the hell are you talking about? And then we learn later kind of what that was about. So I guess first off, before we get to the ex, does Terry have an anger problem? Because she says, what does she say to him? You've been quick with your hands lately. She didn't say you've been violent lately. And I don't know about y'all, but when she said quick with your hands lately, I think we knew that was the kiss too.
Right.
It wasn't just fighting.
Yeah.
So she was trying to tell him, oh, you've got an anger problem or whatever, but she's also kind of being passive aggressive. Mulligan, you're tough. You're a detective. You're straightforward. You're blunt. Don't do this passive aggressive stuff where you just say quick with your hands and then he calls you on it. He was like, what do you mean? Give me specific examples. And she doesn't tell him about the kiss.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. Say it.
Yeah, I don't think they're being honest with each other.
No,
not
they're
at all.
definitely not.
Absolutely
They're
not.
definitely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And that's the problem because they have such a good detective relationship. And yet now, here it comes, it's going to get messed up. And it's both their faults on that kiss, but it's going to get messed up because they haven't squashed the beef and they haven't talked about it. That's on them.
I wonder if they haven't because they actually have feelings for each other and they want more. Because I feel like if it was something that it was just like, oh, it's just a kiss, it was like, laugh it off. Like, it was just a kiss.
They were drinking wine, you're drunk,
Yeah,
mistakes happen,
exactly.
absolutely. Yeah.
But they were making such a big deal out of it, and lying to each other and making little comments like that. And so it makes me think that there's something else there.
Right. Well, especially, I mean, the last episode, when Terry started singing the karaoke song, Hildy got a little hot and heavy and had to leave. So, yeah, I definitely, I mean, maybe it's just because they haven't talked about it and it's still unresolved, but it seems like she is definitely feeling something. Whether that gets explored later, we'll see.
I hope we do see. And then we meet Hildy's ex. We've seen him before. We meet him a little bit again, and he's talking to English and making amends for that fight and whatever. And the whole time he's making amends and saying, I hated you, I was envious of you, I was jealous of you, blah, blah, blah. You knew, Hildy in a way that I didn't know her. The whole time I'm looking at Terry's face and I'm thinking, Terry's going to tell him they kissed. This is the time to tell him. And he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Which is probably okay. It's probably not the time to tell him. But he didn't do it, and then he went to Chris Walton, and we've talked about that a little bit. Should Terry have come clean to Hildy's ex?
I don't think in that situation. I think her ex is in a very vulnerable situation right now. You know, he's been sober for 2 years, and he's trying to do his 9th step, I guess.
Yeah.
And be honest. And I think it's one of those things that they just want to get it out of their chest. You know, they don't want to receive it. You know, they just need to like
Right. That moment was really about him.
Right. It was about him. It was not about Taye. So I don't think he would be ready to hear that.
And it probably was, and it may be the kind of thing, even though that Hildy and her ex were broken up at this point during the kiss, is not cheating or anything, it may be the kind of thing that maybe spurs him back into drinking again.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
okay, maybe it was right for him not to do it. Last thing, and then we're going to go to predictions. We'll do news next week. I know we're a little short on time, but we got to talk Mark Strauss. This suicide.
Yes.
Or apparent suicide, overdose, whatever it is. 2 questions. Was it actually a suicide? And is that suicide note where he says he killed Cindy Strauss, is that legit?
I say no.
I say definitely not his note, because we've got more episodes to go. So, just right off the bat, it's too easy of an out. Whether or not he committed suicide, that's a little bit more of a gray area. I think he may have wanted an out, but I think he wasn't alone. I think someone helped or kind of gave him the idea. Obviously, he was sort of pushed pretty far by Daniels, but I think maybe he went for help and someone convinced him that there was no other way out.
I think it was not Daniels. I don't think he did it, but I think he ordered somebody to do it.
Wow. That's a huge bomb drop.
Daniels, woo.
I mean, it's his case. He's known for winning. He wants to win.
You got to
He
win
does
at all
have a
costs.
reputation.
Wow, that is a true Doberman. I think you just made a prediction. So without further ado, let's go to predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
That was a huge bomb drop.
That was.
You never know.
I'm going to tell you what, Marina's been right about like everything the past couple days. Whatever it is, Marina's been winning. So maybe she's right about this.
That's how I like
True.
it.
I mean, I didn't think about that. I have to admit.
I think it is.
That would be
it's like
a
he's somebody
twist.
in his team. Or, I don't know.
That would be low.
Hey, what he does is win. He doesn't care how it's done.
Wow. Is that your prediction, or do you have another one besides it? Tell us what else is going to happen, Marina.
Yeah, just use your
Where's the
psychic
crystal ball?
powers. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know.
The Daniels thing is
Well,
big.
Daniel-
If
yeah,
Daniels
that
is
thing
involved,
is pretty big.
that's pretty big.
Daniels-
I will
pretty
say
big.
this: Taye is gonna open up the case for Chris Walton.
Oh, Walton's case?
You
Okay.
know, I think under the table kind of thing. I don't think he's gonna be telling people, but he's gonna be working on it to figure out who was actually the killer.
Well, if you've been convicted of a murder, it's going to take years to get something. I mean, you hear stories in the news about, these nonprofit judicial things that like look at wrongfully convicted people. That takes years to do that. So if he's wrongfully convicted, it's going to take forever anyways. So it would probably have to be under the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all I have.
All right. Well, I will jump in. I don't think it's Daniels. I think it is partly the lawyer, though. I will piggyback to that.
That guy's shady. Something about that guy's
He
shady.
is shady. I think it's, again, a trio of people. I think it's Eric. I think it's Bill. And I think it's the ponytail lawyer. You've obviously predicted this since episode 1 because of the ponytail. Or maybe some other stuff. But I feel like he is sort of the common denominator in everybody's relationship. He was sitting in when Daniels left. He was there with Bill and the lawyer. He's kind of behind the scenes, but he's also connected to them the most.
Yeah.
I think maybe he's a prime suspect for sending Bill's wife that video. The motivations are definitely unclear. I think he knows so much, and he's in a prime place to kind of fix stuff. He said he was a cleaner, so I don't know if I don't think he's against Eric and Bill, but like in the last episode, Bill and Eric had that moment. They're like, yeah, like we have each other's back, and there's that weird look. I feel like they're all working together and maybe it was an accident, and they got in a fight and Cindy fell or something, some unintentional way, and they're all trying to clean it up.
I'm going to let you make my case for me with
Totally.
the lawyer. I don't know if it's a whole group thing like that, but I know that Hertzberg's involved.
Yeah.
You can't be a lawyer with a ponytail and not be a little
Exactly.
shady.
Well, yeah, I definitely think he killed or told Mark to kill himself.
Interesting.
All
Okay.
right.
I will say real quick on my last prediction, the lawyer, I'm going to stick with my guy, but I think that Hildy and English will break up as detectives at some point. And I think Raphael Sparge, who we had last week, I think he's going to play a bigger role. I think some of the other detectives are, because they're going to take, one of them will take Hildy, the other one will take English, and those two are not going to be able to work together anymore because of this relationship thing, I'm telling you. We'll see. All right, guys.
Yeah.
That's it this week on Murder in the First. Twitter and all that sort of stuff. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rena Brazil.
You can find me at JB_Zimmerman.
And I'm on Twitter at Bobby DeMuro, on Instagram at Mr. Bobby DeMuro. Guys, that's it this week on Murder in the First. We'll see you another week from today, another Monday night next week to talk more Murder in the First and hopefully get some clarity on this case. I just want to find out who the killer is. I've been waiting for 6 weeks. We're going to have to wait for 4 more. So that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching, subscribing, doing all that good stuff on iTunes and YouTube. We will see you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
Thank you for watching AfterBuzz TV on YouTube. For more of your favorite after shows and interviews, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to share your opinion on the episode in the comment section below here. We'd love to see what you guys are buzzing about. Thanks again. Buzz you later.